Sarah thought she was losing her mind. For 3 nights straight, the same thing happened. She'd wake up at exactly 2:17 a.m. to the sound of scratching. Not inside the house, outside her bedroom window, 3 floors up. The first night, she convinced herself it was branches in the wind. The second night, maybe a cat somehow. But on the third night, she gathered enough courage to look. And there it was. A raven. Massive. Sitting perfectly still on her narrow windowsill, its obsidian eyes locked onto hers through the glass. The moonlight seemed to disappear into its feathers, like they were made of pure shadow. For what felt like hours, neither of them moved. The bird didn't blink, didn't shift. It just watched her, as if it knew something she didn't. When morning came, it was gone. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that the raven hadn't just been looking at her, it had been looking through her, reading something written in a language she didn't understand. 2 days later, her phone rang with news that would change everything. Her father had suffered a massive heart attack. As she rushed to the hospital, one thought echoed in her mind. The raven knew. Somehow, it knew. Sarah's story isn't unique. Across cultures, across centuries, people have whispered about encounters just like this. About ravens that appear before tragedy strikes. About black wings that carry messages from realms we can't see. But what is it about this particular bird that has haunted human imagination for thousands of years? Tonight, we're going to follow the raven's shadow through time, from ancient battlefields to modern hospital windows, from Edgar Allan Poe's tortured verses to your grandmother's superstitions. Because the raven's story is really our story, and it's darker than you think. Picture this. It's 1845, and Edgar Allan Poe is sitting in his study, candle burning low. He's broke. His wife is dying of tuberculosis, and he's desperate for a poem that will save his career. What he creates instead becomes a curse that haunts American literature forever. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. You know the story. A man, alone with his grief, receives an unexpected visitor. A raven that perches above his chamber door and speaks only one word: nevermore. But here's what most people miss. Poe didn't just write about a talking bird. He wrote about the moment when hope dies. Every question the narrator asks, every desperate plea for comfort, meets the same black wall of finality. Will I see my love again? Nevermore. Will this pain ever end? Nevermore. Is there any escape from this torment? Nevermore. The raven becomes the voice of absolute despair, the messenger that tells us some losses are permanent, some doors once closed never open again. And here's the thing that gave people chills then, and still does now. What if the bird wasn't lying? What if some creatures really can see the threads that connect our present to our future? What if the raven in Poe's poem wasn't just a symbol, but a glimpse into something much older, much more real? Long before Poe put pen to paper, ravens were already carrying secrets across the ancient world. In the frozen halls of Norse mythology, the All-Father Odin kept 2 ravens perched on his shoulders. Their names were Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. Every dawn, these birds would spread their wings and fly across all 9 realms, gathering whispers of what was, what is, and what might come to be. Even a god needed his ravens to see clearly. But it wasn't just the Norse who noticed something special about these birds. Celtic warriors believed ravens could predict the outcome of battles. They'd watch the flight patterns, listen to the calls, searching for signs of victory or doom. In medieval Europe, people would cross themselves when ravens gathered in unusual numbers, because where ravens flocked, death soon followed. They seemed to know things, sense things that human eyes couldn't see. And in China, Vietnam, across all of Asia, the folklore was eerily similar. A raven landing on your roof wasn't just a random event. It was a warning, a sign that the invisible world was trying to tell you something. But why ravens? Why not sparrows or eagles or doves? The answer lies in what ravens do that other birds don't. They remember. They recognize faces. They hold grudges. They mourn their dead. And most unnervingly of all, they seem to understand death in a way that's almost human. Scientists have documented ravens performing what can only be called funeral rituals. When one of their own dies, the others gather around, cawing in patterns that sound disturbingly like mourning. They've been observed returning to places where their companions died, as if paying respects to ghosts. Maybe our ancestors weren't superstitious. Maybe they were just paying attention. You might think these are just old stories, relics of a more superstitious time, but I want to tell you about Marcus Chen, a software engineer from Portland, who learned otherwise. It was November 15th, 2019. Marcus was driving home from a late shift, taking the same route he'd driven 1,000 times before. Around midnight, he crested a hill on a lonely stretch of highway and slammed on his brakes. The road was black with ravens, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, sitting motionless on the asphalt. His headlights caught their eyes, turning the darkness into a galaxy of tiny stars. He honked his horn. Nothing. He inched forward. They didn't budge. For 20 minutes, Marcus sat there, engine idling, staring at this impossible scene. Then, all at once, the ravens rose into the air like a black cloud and disappeared into the night sky. Marcus drove forward and discovered that 50 yards ahead, a massive tree had fallen across the road just minutes earlier. If the ravens hadn't stopped him, he would have hit it at full speed. The ravens had saved his life. Or had they? Then there's Elena Rodriguez, whose story still gives me chills. She was visiting her grandfather in the hospital. Terminal cancer. Doctors said he had maybe weeks left. As she sat by his bedside, a raven appeared at the window. 3rd floor. No ledge. No tree nearby. It shouldn't have been possible. The bird perched there for hours, perfectly still, watching. Elena's grandfather kept looking at it, nodding as if they were having a conversation she couldn't hear. That night, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. But here's the part that haunts Elena. The next morning, she found out that her grandfather had been a World War II pilot. His call sign, Raven. Coincidence? Or something reaching across the veil? So what are we really talking about when we talk about ravens? Are they just intelligent birds that happen to scavenge near death? Or are they something more? Psychopomps, as the Greeks called them. Guides that help souls transition between worlds. Maybe the truth is simpler and more terrifying than either explanation. Maybe ravens are mirrors. They reflect back to us the thing we try hardest not to think about. That death is always present, always watching, always one heartbeat away. They force us to confront the temporary nature of everything we love. That's why the raven in Poe's poem is so devastating. It's not just saying nevermore to the narrator's questions. It's saying nevermore to the human delusion that we can cheat mortality, that love can conquer death, that anything in this world is permanent. And maybe that's exactly what we need to hear. Because once you accept that everything ends, your relationships, your dreams, your very existence, you start to see life differently. Every moment becomes precious because you know it won't last forever. Every goodbye carries weight because you understand it might be the last one. The raven doesn't bring death. It brings awareness. And sometimes, awareness is the most terrifying gift of all. So the next time you spot a raven perched on a telephone wire, or hear that harsh caw cutting through the silence, or catch those intelligent eyes watching you from across a parking lot, don't look away. Ask yourself, what is it trying to tell you? What truth are you avoiding? What reality are you not ready to face? Because if thousands of years of human experience have taught us anything, it's this. The raven always knows something you don't. This is Symbol Decoded. And some symbols choose us.